Hello, and welcome back to An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about Joss Whedon's 2002 science fiction western TV series Firefly. It is set in the year 2157. Humanity has spread to the stars, settling on dozens of habitable planets. Unfortunately, we brought along all of our worst impulses on the journey. The richest central planets formed an alliance and demanded that the frontier submit to their authority. A bit of war ensued, with the Alliance's advantage in manufacturing base and population numbers eventually overcoming the spirited resistance of the independent worlds. In the tense atmosphere of the post-war period, former independent soldiers Mal Reynolds and Zoe Washburn are trying to make a living via the Serenity, their Firefly-class spaceship, hence the name of the show. They and their small crew live hand-to-mouth on the basis of small-scale shipping contracts, supplemented by sidelines in taking on passengers, committing a little smuggling, and the occasional foray into other less-than-legal business opportunities. A little bit of theft, a little bit of larceny, that sort of thing. Now, of those three sidelines, you might expect that taking on passengers was the least likely to make the crew's lives extremely complicated. But when two of the passengers turn out to be on the run from a secret Alliance science project, everyone on the Serenity finds themselves involved in something far more important than just making enough cash to keep flying. Though they do still have to make enough cash to keep flying. So Firefly had a positive critical reception when it came out, and it won a loyal base of fans in what would prove its brief television run. And it was a brief run indeed. The show was cancelled after only 3 months by the Fox network, who only aired 11 of its 14 produced episodes. The decision was one of ratings. While those who watched the show often became passionate fans, there simply weren't enough people watching it in the first place. Letter writing and other campaigns by the fan base failed to secure the show's return from cancellation, but they did manage to secure a DVD release for the series. And on DVD, Firefly achieved ascendance to kind of cult status, which was in turn enough to secure a feature film sequel. That film, entitled Serenity, also failed to find an audience, and honestly, I think it deserved to fail to find one. I didn't think it was a very good movie. I think it's not well made, not well written. But Firefly, on the other hand, did have a number of things to recommend it, and I can see why it won such passionate fans in the first place, and even why it was accorded New Scientist magazine's 2005 award for the world's greatest space science fiction show. But while I liked Firefly, I don't rate it quite as highly as some others do, and I can certainly see why it failed to find an audience, which is a different thing from being good or bad. So let's talk about that, first of all, before we delve into the show's major pros and cons as a work of entertainment. So Firefly was created by Joss Whedon, today probably best known for directing the first 2 Avengers films, and also for his instances of sexually predatory behaviour with his female cast members. Whedon's deserved fall from grace was, however, a good many years in the future when Firefly was announced, and instead came at a time when his TV career was riding high on the success of his shows Buffy the Vampire Slayer and its spin-off Angel. Marketing the new release of the apparent Wonder Kids show should have been a pretty easy task, you would think, but Fox didn't seem to know how to do it. Certainly, I was a big Buffy and Angel fan at the time, and a long-standing fan of science fiction, and I should have been an easy sell for Firefly, but nothing Fox said about it made it sound very interesting to me. I didn't even see the series until a friend loaned me her DVDs, and I subsequently bought my own copy. Now, perhaps Fox struggled to sell Firefly because they simply weren't sold on the program they had acquired. A science fiction show that was overtly a western in space was quite out of the ordinary for the time, and they were apparently deeply unhappy with Whedon's original pilot episode, which they rejected for being too dour, slow, and low-key. They insisted he produce a new pilot with a faster-paced, more action-focused, lighter tone. And ironically, not only did this second attempt introduce the Hands of Blue Men, who became a major feature of a central mystery within the show, but I think they were probably right. It is a better introduction to the setting and the characters than the original pilot. Once you know the characters and you go and watch the pilot, it's really good. But without that context, I actually think Fox were right. In any case, there was uncertainty over how to market the show, and deep differences of opinion on the show's tone and direction. Then, to complete the trifecta of troubles, Fox aired the episodes in a different order to that which Whedon had intended. In the circumstances, with all the behind-the-scenes schmozzle, it's perhaps unsurprising that the program failed to win a big audience. Now, Firefly had a central cast of no less than 9 characters, all of the folk pictured on your screen right now, which is a lot to introduce and juggle, and probably part of the reason that they struggle with the pilot. If you compare it to Buffy or Angel, both of those began with a core cast of 5 or 6 and only gradually expanded on that later. It's to the show's credit, then, that I think both the original pilot episode and the last-minute new pilot do a solid job of introducing the entire cast, establishing their basic personality types, and setting up the core conflicts and relationships that are going to drive them. You've got Mal's resentment for the Alliance and the attraction he refuses to admit for Inara. You've got Kaylee's effervescent cheerfulness and bashful crush on Simon. Simon and River's sibling bond and the shadowy conspiracy from which they're running. Everyone has some mystery or plotline or hook or relationship to explore. They're all also likeable, interesting individuals as characters, flawed but fun to watch, and they're portrayed by talented, if somewhat problematic, and more on that later, actors. It's not hard to see why so many of the people who did watch the show fell in love with these characters. Unfortunately, Firefly does have some problematic elements in its setting. Now, I don't mean its confused efforts to justify there being dozens of human habitable worlds in a single solar system, which is scientific nonsense, but easy enough to ignore. I mean its conscious adaptation of a lost cause, freedom fighter role for the independents. With their brown coats and rhetoric about resisting central suppression of their rights, they're quite clearly coded as Confederates, both visually and verbally. Given that the primary right for which the Confederates fought, as clearly written in their own statements of the time, was the right to own and exploit slaves, this is a decision that I find deeply distasteful. And, being 20 years old does not excuse this. We knew this 20 years ago. There are also the real-world issues with the cast and creator. I've mentioned the revelations about Joss Whedon's sexually predatory behaviour already, which is apparently such an issue that the crew of Buffy conspired to ensure he was never left alone in a room with the 16-year-old Michelle Trachtenberg. He's also been accused of emotionally and verbally abusing female cast members working for him, and of racist behaviour on the set of Justice League. Cast member Adam Baldwin, who plays Jane, has also shown himself to be deep into the so-called men's rights movements, repeating verifiably untrue statements about female game designers as part of the Gamergate hate movement, and more recently attributing the rise of mass shootings in the US to, among other things, the abortion rights that used to be granted by Roe versus Wade. So Firefly was a good show, but it definitely had its problematic elements, and if you do watch it, bear those elements in mind. Next time, Disney Pixar's 1999 release Toy Story 2, the film that cemented Toy Story as a generationally iconic franchise and ensured multiple subsequent cinema releases for Buzz, Woody and the gang. Not bad for something that was originally conceived as a cheap direct-to-video release. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.